You're listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner.
This is Zoom the TBT, and we start with Scar coughing right off the bat. We're going to bring some energy tonight. We have our super regional quarters previews with my esteemed partner and guest. I have Charge Nation, my co-host. I have broadcasting legends, Matt Martucci and Tim Scarborough. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Legends in quotation marks. Appreciate it.
Well, I said my co-host partner, so it's all we're doing all quotations tonight.
Yeah,
I'm a lazy bastard of a co-host. Okay, so let's get into this. I know everybody's tired. So first of all, before we get into the game, that concept of the show is simple. We try to preview our final 8 in TBT by asking my wonderful panel some questions like the game 21. First 21 wins, but everybody's a winner here except for me. I don't win anything. And everybody's pretty tired. So before we get into it, though, Matt, how was Pittsburgh?
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I love the city. Love the ambiance. Probably one of the most walkable cities in the country. Plenty to do. Scar and I had a bunch of friends that were in town. It was cool. And the basketball was good too.
How about the Phillies? Don't forget the Phillies. The Phillies game.
True.
That was great. Phillies beat the Pirates.
Got to see Nick Castellanos home run like 6 hours after Tom Brenneman announced he was coming back, and then Biden resigned, and then we had a Casty Blasty out to left field.
Casty Blasty.
Yeah, the timing. Whenever that guy hits a home run, you're like, oh God, what's about to happen? Yeah. So Scar, you guys had some great games. So I want to stay on that for just a second. We'll get into the whole show in a minute. But the Pittsburgh region was streaming, so some people didn't see it, but it was a fairly elite bunch of basketball. You had the Backyard Brawl, you had the Keystone Classic. How much fun was that being there in Pittsburgh calling those games?
Yeah, the matchups were great. I mean, West Virginia had a really good team. We've covered, Matt and I have covered that region a few times. We were in Charleston a couple times. Last year we were in Wheeling, West Virginia. Now we're in Pittsburgh. So it was basically the same region. Heard that wasn't there anymore. And that Marshall team had some success, particularly last year when they won the whole region. But I felt like the West Virginia team was better. They retooled. They were younger. No more Kevin Jones. No more John Flowers. Those guys are more coaches and GMs now. But they had a really good team that they ran up there. But the Penn State team was great. Ended up winning that whole thing. And I was really impressed with the Pitt team because they were horrible the year before. And I felt almost bad for Gilbert Brown, the team that he put together. A lot of guys didn't show up, and then the guys that didn't play real well. But this year, man, wow, I felt like they had everything that they needed to win this whole thing. It was amazing that they got upset.
Yeah, that was a really close game. I actually watched the end of it. You guys called a great game. It was a really, really tight game. You guys were arguing with Nick Elam about the strategy of when they decided to foul. You actually were doing that on the air, which I found really, really entertaining as an inside kind of baseball sort of thing. Like, they should foul here. Nick's like, you guys are wrong. I thought that was a great part of the little bit of television. Now, Charge, we got to hang out. We hang out once a year. You're in Indy. I'm in New York. We had to hang out at historic Hinkle Fieldhouse. Got to go up there for a couple games. How great was having the hoops at Hinkle, one of the meccas of college basketball?
Yeah, no, it was a phenomenal environment. Obviously, for me, moving out there and having TBT come to Hinkle was perfect for me. But the games were phenomenal. Indiana fans really showed up at the Hinkle Fieldhouse. You got some nice crowds. Purdue showed up a little Butler, but Assembly Ball really made that a special environment and kind of, like I said, historic field house. The games were incredible. A lot of drama, a lot of great Elam endings. We'll talk about some of the story of Everline as we go further in the show, but it was a phenomenal regional.
Okay.
I got to see you, of course.
Oh, yeah, which no one should ever care about. My dog barely cares about seeing you. Let's just be honest. I'm the least important part of this entire endeavor. With that being said, let's kind of get into this now. So, as usual, this is pretty simple. We ask you guys questions. You guys answer. I award points. I mute the idiots, and we go from there. You guys are my friends. Let's get right in this. We're going to start with a round of buy-sell. And the first question, we'll start with Charge. Buy-sell. The Louisville Regional Final is the biggest game in TV history. And actually, to be fair, I mean super regional. So the quarterfinal between UK and Louisville is the biggest game in TV history. Charge, buy or sell?
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely buying that. It is, I mean, if you're following the social media, they sold over 10,000 tickets already. So when I talk big, it's not just because the attendance. They're going to look for a sellout crowd of 15,000, but there's a lot of things going on there aside from the attendance. It really is the model of TBT success, these alumni teams. So for them to, get Kentucky versus Louisville set up is amazing. It's exactly what they're trying to do in future regionals. And then I think the other thing that's interesting about it is as teams are evolving, you're getting these alumni teams led by NBA players. And so you're going to showcase Bledsoe and Harrell and other NBA guys. So as we go forward, these are teams that people love. So not only do you have the alumni folks, but you have the NBA folks. You got large crowds, rabid fan bases. It's definitely the biggest game in TBT history.
That's a pretty good answer. Scar, buy or sell? Biggest game in TBT history.
Well, if you're going to sell it, tell me what game was better, right? So I have to buy it because, I've been to a lot of TBT finals, a lot of semifinals. I've done several regional finals and quarterfinals. So I've definitely been around enough to know that, the 10,000 tickets kind of says it all. But really, as Charge mentioned, the matchup is just incredible when you think about what the Louisville team has brought this year. And remember last year, they had a really good team, and they had an Elam ending scenario where they went about 5 real-time minutes where they couldn't score a basket and ultimately ended up losing that game. So they want to kind of avenge that. But, that really kind of ticked me and Matt off because we were waiting for a live transition from their region to ours. And we're like, cool, it's Elam ending. It's going to end fast because all Elam ending games end fast, right? Wrong. So we're 15 minutes past the hour waiting for the baton to get passed to us for an ESPN live game. And the referees are looking at me and Matt as if we control it.
Like we had any control over it.
Yeah, we're looking at
or really anything if we're being honest.
Right.
Yeah, right. Barely myself or my own faculties. And we're watching this game, and I'm watching them take bad shot after bad shot after bad shot. And I became a Louisville enemy from that moment on. But
welcome to the party, Scar. Welcome to the party.
But seriously, I really think the team that they put together is great. And then you get the rivalry, which Kentucky and Louisville don't really like to play each other for whatever reason. And now we're almost forcing their hands. They will be meeting in Louisville this weekend. Or where's the game? Is it Rupp or no? It's in Louisville, right? Yeah.
It's at Louisville. It's at Freedom Hall.
Yeah. Freedom Hall. So that Kentucky team, Bledsoe, the Harrison twins, Willie Cauley-Stein, really good group assembled. And it's nice to see the Blue Bloods bringing their best talent to TBT. I'm looking forward to this matchup.
Hang on. I'm also hearing again that La Familia just scored on Heard That again. So yes, they're still scoring in that game. Before I get to your answer, Matt, I want to show real quick. We got a thing in the chat here. I want to show Jacob Hirschman talking about 10,000 tickets. Here we go again, real quick. This is Jacob Hirschman, who is the co-GM of Everline Drive. I think we played a game in Salt Lake City with legitimately 7 fans. So we're talking about going from 7 fans in SLC to 10K plus, which is nuts. That's insane. Let's end it with you, Touche. Let's end strong. Buy, sell. Biggest game in TBT history.
I'm obviously buying, and I think we live in a generation these days in a modern day era of superlatives where, is LeBron the greatest? Is this the best dynasty? Like we tend to live all up and down superlatives. Even in the way that we write headlines, we sensationalize the crap out of everything. So and so breaks their silence about this. I didn't know they weren't, that they weren't speaking to begin with.
Yeah, it happened 10 minutes ago.
Right, exactly. Somebody broke their silence. I saw that today. Somebody broke their silence on their divorce. Maybe they didn't want to talk to the general public about their marriage. Anyway, that was a bit of a sidebar. But, I mean, look at this. It has to be the biggest game in the history of this event. I mean, this is literally a 2-hour infomercial on national TV to pump up everything that makes this event great. You have pros on both sides. You have 2 blue blood programs who absolutely hate each other and want to stomp on each other's throats. Eric Bledsoe looked like Eric Bledsoe from like 10 years ago when I was watching him the other night against Heard That. Montrezl Harrell obviously is a great story, having written that article in the Players Tribune like a week or 2 before TBT started. I just think there's so much drama. There are so many different storylines to this thing. Yeah, I'm absolutely buying it. There's no way I could possibly sell it.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, in terms of best Elam ending comeback, always a Brave out in Peoria with Scarborough and I, but I don't think this game is topping that one. That's for sure.
Yeah, because you're talking about a moment. You're talking about a moment versus a matchup. So yeah, the always a brave moment will never be forgotten. We make sure we show Wes Johnson running around in genuine euphoria of that comeback. And again, that comeback was, as we talk about in Elam ending scenarios, if you get comeback, if the team comes back on you, it's usually aided and abetted by your bad play. So that was a very great moment in TBT history that you and I got to call and be a part of forever. But yeah, I can't touch what we're about to see on Monday.
It was like a robot running when the guy was just doing this when that happened. It was like the weirdest thing I've ever seen. It was absolutely fantastic. I swear, it was so cool. Okay, so I would agree too. I'm buying this too. I can't think of a single bigger match of this. I mean, there's been some great matchups. Can anybody even think of what's number two? There's been so many great games. Off the top of their head, is there even a close contender? I don't even think so. Like, this is unmatched, right?
No, there's been some championship games that have been really terrific to watch.
Yeah,
the bubble championship, maybe the bubble championship
was good. I could think of the one out in Dayton where Scar and I were. I can't remember if you were there or not. But Boeheim's Army and Team 23 that year.
That was a really big game.
The Kiefer Sykes shot, because there was hype surrounding that. Like there was a lot of talent on both. I mean, not that there isn't every year in this thing.
Of course, yeah.
But there was a good amount of star power with Boeheim's Army that year, and 23 obviously was a TBT staple for a long time. So it was, that was cool to see, but I don't think anything in terms of hype and in terms of the way that they built this up. No, I don't think there's anything that tops this. Nothing off the top of my head.
Money's in the ticket sales. Yeah. Okay, great. First thing, let's get into this again. We're going to write our next question, and we're going to go ahead with another buy and sell. So buy, sell. 0-1 seeds in the quarterfinals means TBT parity is here to stay. Scar, why don't you start us off on this one?
You gotta sell that one to me, because TBT is a ever evolving thing from year to year. So any absolutes that you say are not going to apply. So and number ones, there were some unfortunate events that happened too. I mean, like the top seeds in Cincinnati, everything fell apart because of Delta and other things, right? And then
explain. It's an inside baseball thing. We heard about this, but explain to our listeners what exactly. We've heard the story. What happened? I want to hear you explain.
Yeah, from my perspective, and I experienced some of it myself. The travel snafus. When I got the roster for who was in and who was out, there were 6 or 7 players in Cincinnati on a nasty natty team that weren't going to show up. And my understanding is that a lot of them couldn't get there in time. So. When you have those kinds of things, I always say on the air, being a GM in the TBT might be one of the hardest jobs in the world, because in addition to trying to find the perfect talent, because if they're too good, they're going to be in the G League or the Summer League, NBA, or they're still playing overseas, or they have a superpower agent that is a power broker and says, hey, my guys aren't playing in that. And if they're not good enough, you're not going to win the thing, right? So you got to get a really niche talent. And then you got to get them to the arena. And that's the challenge, get them from Lithuania or, from Florida, wherever they're coming from, you got to get them there.
And those are very similar places, just to be clear. Those are not different, being completely honest. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
and these guys tried to get in the night before too. So make no mistake, it wasn't like they took an early flight and they were trying to get there by noon for a later game. This was the night before, so totally out of their control, and just unfortunate, because they had a nice run to the regional final. So all right, back to your question, whatever that was, I forgot already. Parity.
Okay. Well, since I didn't call you and you're out of turn, let's go let you say. So charge. Parity. No 1 seeds. Parity's here to stay. Go ahead and rumble on, my man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm buying that 100% on this one, and the reason is it's the buy-in. So we're going from anywhere from 100 to 110 teams applying to play in the TBT every year, down to 64 teams. Some threshold of that 64 teams is going to be alumni-based teams. So now you have a pool of players, of very talented players that a select few teams are looking for. So when you look at a team like Dream 34 that scored QJ Peterson, I mean, that would not have happened in past years. It just doesn't happen. And then Red Rose Thunder, everyone's like, oh, there's some, bad ECBL team, and they end up getting all these guys for Philly and putting together a really nice squad and making a nice run. And so I think just the buy-in factor is gonna, get the player pool into those teams. And in some of our earlier shows, I was surprised how deep this team was. And the names on their rosters, people, or not the name on the roster, the name on their jerseys may not have been familiar, but these players were familiar and very experienced. So I'm buying as long as the buy-in's in. I think the parity's there.
That's actually a pretty good argument because they're sort of condensing at the front end. We actually are going to have less teams to spread the talent. That actually makes some sense. Tooch, buy or sell? Parity is here to stay with no one seeds going.
I'm going to buy. I'll do my Heath Ledger to Christian Bale in The Dark Knight. You've changed things for the better. And I was kind of skeptical about what the buy-in would do. I know that there are mixed feelings about it in terms of travel costs and everything that you have to put together from a team perspective. But just looking down the depth of some of these rosters, I mean, heck, look at Eberline Drive. They added Jake Stevens, who's supposed to be on the roster, but didn't end up coming in until their third game from the NBA Summer League, and ended up being the difference for them the other night after they almost coughed that game up. So I just think top to bottom, it's been a long time since I've seen this many loaded rosters. I mean, look at what La Familia did to Herd That. Look at what happened.
They scored again. They scored again too. Go ahead. Yeah.
Look at what happened. Look at what happened to Stars of Stores. If you have veteran rosters in this thing, anybody can beat anybody. Seedings,
right.
Seedings be damned. So
I
think it's here to stay.
If I could jump back in real quick, I think there were a lot of number one seeds that shouldn't have been number one seeds. Heard that was not the best team in that region. And
Stars of Stores was living on back-to-back national championship credit.
I think the one true number one, and they had a tough region, was the defending champion Heartfire. But other than that,
Scar, even they were. It felt like they were living on borrowed time the first two rounds. I mean,
every time they won.
D3 almost beat them, and then
D3 should have beaten them. Should have beaten them. Yeah.
And I mean, I love Heartfire's roster.
But the Aftershocks, they've been a number one seed almost every year, and it's primarily because of their home court advantage. But are they the best team in that region? Most of the time, to me, they are not. The same with Bleed Green. They got to the championship game, but that was, to me, they were one of those teams that kind of like the Buccaneers and some of those younger teams. The Buffalo team was a little different because they dominated and won the thing. But the Bleed Green team was more like, a bunch of young guys that play really cohesively together, but far from unbeatable. But I guess they earned the number one because they got to the championship game. So I get it. But I didn't think they were the best team in that region either.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, that's a pretty good note for both of you about the one seeds and also the whole parity thing. That's a really, really fair point. Okay, we're going to keep this moving. Those are all really good points. I will say this is one thing I really found interesting about this cycle is TBT has grown a lot the last few years. There's been some upheaval issue, a new TV deal, which has some positives and negatives. It pushed more games to the web as opposed to an official streaming platform, but it gave them OTA games, which they didn't have, even though, of course, one of the OTA, we just lost Tooch, but we're sure Tooch will be back.
It could have been a subject matter.
No. I don't think so.
Streaming?
But what happened was but having said, this is one thing that's been really interesting about this cycle was the venues. Every of the 8 venues, 7 were primary college stadiums, and the one that wasn't is Historic Freedom Hall that was once a historic one. So on this note, let's go ahead and get into this. Buy, sell. This is the best venue regional setup in years, and TBT should run it back in 2025. While Matt gets his camera fixed, Scar, I'll go to you. Regions, buy, sell. Is this the best? Keep it. What's the deal?
I think you underscored it in your intro. Yes, it is the best because of when you think about Hinkle, historic Hinkle, the places that TBT is playing in right now are places that are on some people's bucket list to go watch games, right? I know Hinkle's on my bucket list. Lexington, Kentucky's on my bucket list. I've been.
They're both worth it. They're both worth it.
Yeah, just really worth playing. I mean, obviously during the regular season, during college games, that's when the best time to go. Not to take anything from TBT, but yeah, TBT getting those venues is huge, and the only thing that would top it off for me is if they played in the Palestra in Philadelphia as a lifelong Philadelphian instead of the Daskalakis Center. But I do like the DAC a lot, and the semifinals and championship being there last year was terrific. So you can't really complain.
All right, let's go ahead. Let's go to Matt now since we got Matt back. Matt, this is the best region setup in years. TBT should run it back in 2025. Buy or sell?
I'll buy with one slight exception. Whatever Pittsburgh, that general area is, I love Pittsburgh. I had a great week out there. But I in terms of where we've been in that general area, a couple hours south, if you will, I think Charleston's the best fit. And you put Herd that, and you put Best Virginia in that region every year, and you want to come close to breaking attendance records. You might end up getting there again, or you might at least have a top 10 attendance game, because those people love that rivalry. They love their basketball.
If you're going to tweak that region, then Morgantown would be the perfect place. But
but no AC, right? No AC.
They don't have AC.
Yeah, they don't have AC.
And we saw what that looked like a couple years ago in Albuquerque. As much as I love being able to go to the pit, that was not fun. Yeah.
Yeah, slipping and sliding. It was the electric slide, except on a basketball court. Not a lot of fun. Charge, buy, sell. Best venue region setup in years, and TBT should run it back.
Yeah, I agree with Matt. It's very good, but the Cincinnati region I think's got to go. Zip them up. Obviously didn't really show up this year. Natty lost some team players, but should have been able to go there. So I just wasn't impressed there. But the other ones, I would stand up very well. I think TBT just got to really watch for things getting stale. In Dayton, it was a good environment, but wasn't a great environment. Really did not get a lot of Ohio State fans there. The Dayton crowd was good, but not great. So I think they return to those. They'll continue to return to those. But just like Louisville, Kentucky, Wichita, when you see the things that they're doing, that's what they got to strive for, and they're really, really close. So we just gotta continue to see where they go and how it plays out.
General question to anybody, and this isn't a scoring, which is a general follow-up, is where we aren't in the West, we aren't in the Southeast. It's a very Big Ten, Midwest, Central SEC sort of thing. There were 5 regions within a 3-hour drive, which I think dilutes the pool a little bit from teams you can get, which shows some congestion. How do we figure out a Western or a Southeastern city to kind of split this up? Is there a region a place this needs to go back to get some other teams a little closer? Charge, I know you have some ideas that are bad.
I think the big thing I didn't know I did, but as you were saying that, I was thinking obviously you got to kind of look over there for that Louisville Lexington formula that worked. I think North Carolina makes perfect sense if you can get the right teams to show up in something like that. And it's funny, Jake mentioned Salt Lake City. I was talking to someone recently because I know Boise wants to host a region someday, and it was brought up that Salt Lake City is probably the worst regional ever for TBT. So, and I wasn't aware it was that bad. And, but I think the Carolinas and, Jake's had put in their team Arkansas, I think, has been, working really, really hard to get in a good position to host. So I think that's going to probably be the next one as you start to.
We're showing on the screen the rumors Arkansas and Auburn are in the mix per sources. That's
per sources.
Auburn would be great. Auburn would be great for sure. Arkansas's team hasn't been strong enough to host, though. That's the reality. But if they could get a stronger team down in Arkansas, that would be good too. Honestly, War Ready until last year and this year hadn't had good showings either. But I'd love to see it.
Still waiting for Chuck to show up.
Chuck Barkley,
for War Ready.
Well, if the TNT TV deal doesn't get sued out and they don't keep it, they'll have plenty of free time on his hands if this doesn't get worked out. With TNT.
He'll be doing our pregame.
Yeah, so they're like, inside the TBT with the inside the NBA. That's what's going to end up happening. Okay, let's get to it out. Yeah, Chuck's going to take all of our jobs. Chuck, you have a standard thing to come. You have a standard invite to come on the podcast, but I'm sure you would rather not do. Okay, let's get one more into the buy sell. Okay, so obviously we've all been following this for years, and we all remember the your teams, your tournament ethos. This originally was a place where absolute complete bozos could try to take money off professionals. The idea is you get 5 guys from the Y, 5 bozos to go play ball. Not that, apropos of nothing, buy, sell, Eberline Drive will make Philadelphia a challenge for their first title. Matt, let's start with you.
I'm going to buy, and it's not because Jake Hirschman is on our stream right now. I genuinely like their roster. Just looking up and down, like I told you what I saw from Jake Stevens the other night. I've just been genuinely impressed with what I've seen. And I think the fact that they were able to survive that the other night and not cough up that Elam ending,
despite their best effort to try,
will make them that much stronger. I think in the quarterfinals. So I don't know how convincing that argument was necessarily, but I like this roster, and I think they're built to go.
Yeah, I think that sounds about right. Scar, buy or sell? Eberline will make Philly and challenge for their first title.
Yeah, I think the way they're playing, they're very efficient. I feel like TBT this year in particular, the teams, I know certainly in our region, the shooting was sensational, and it wasn't bad defense. It was big time shot making, and these guys have big shot makers, and they're shooting, about 43% from the field, 42 from downtown roughly. So, they've got guys that are scoring a lot of points, and Jake Stevens, the former VMI standout that finished his career at Chattanooga, was a really good addition, a big center. So I think they have the pieces. So yeah, I look for them to break through and get to possibly a championship game, which would be cool because last year we got to hang out with Jake when they weren't playing. So This time we get to kind of cheer them on.
They got to win one more to get there. Let's be very clear. They got to win one more. And Jake, before we get to you to charge for your answer, real quick, Jake just put in, winning ugly as part of TBT, all about survival. Hard to argue with Jake there. It's a pretty accurate thing. Okay, charge, real quick, buy or sell? The Drive will make Philly and challenge for their first title.
Yeah, no, I think we're all on the same page with Eberline, so I think we're all behind them. Let's drive. The big thing with Eberline is just tenacity with this team. I mean, they've been kind of overlooked, lost the first 2 rounds the past 2 years. I mean, Matt and Jake are GMs of the year. I don't know how you go a different direction. Your team's folding about crumble to next to nothing when you lose Slaughter and Johnny O'Brien and guys like that, Jake Stevens, the summer league, and you keep scrapping, you don't give up, and that's what the team's doing right now. So I think the team is just playing with a lot of heart and tenacity, and you got guys like Clemens. I mean, this guy almost got ended by Adriel Bailey and gets up and just gets so pumped up because he's not giving up any easy buckets out there. I mean, this guy is amazing. Goodwin, Stone. It's just a really, really good team, solid team. And I think they just got the right attitude. Now they're getting shipped off to Houston unexpectedly versus Butler. So it says one more challenge, but why not? So these Eberline guys are going to be there and, go after it hard. So I'm buying it.
And this shows you how tenuous is. Jake is still in the chat. He just says, straight up ask TBT for entry feedback 3s before. If they said yes, we would have bowed out. I tell you, winning in TBT is really at the margins. It gets that close to this crazy.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of the stories of the year. So not mine officially, so on our show, but it's crazy what these guys have done in a short amount of time.
Okay, so that's our first round real quick. So let's go ahead. Everybody's tied at 10. Not that I'm rigging the scores or anything. This isn't exactly the election process, but, I can't count that much anyway. I'm not smart to rig nothing. Okay, so we're going to buy or sell. Let's get some more open-ended questions. First of all, this one's a little bit more interesting about how we're going. And we'll start with Scar here. What is your biggest story of TBT so far?
Wow, that's a good question. So, obviously, I was Team Heartfire. Matt asked me on the air the other day, Team Heartfire, can they repeat? And I said, yes. Normally, when you go a team versus the field or an individual versus the field, I take the field. But with this group, I took the Team Heartfire. And the reason is because they added DJ Kennedy and they got Eric Washington back, who's one of the better TBT guards in the history of TBT and its small history. They added those two guys. But in reality, though, they didn't subtract enough, probably. They had a lot of good players, and LaFonso Ellis had a hard time keeping the right balance of people. And they found themselves digging themselves in holes and digging out of those holes. And then, the other night, they couldn't quite dig out of that hole, and now they're home. But to me, that was the biggest story, them not being able to repeat. But the other big story to me is the game you talked about coming up. Louisville having a really good team and Kentucky having a really good team. Natural rivalries geographically, two great programs. And most importantly, they got some of their better guys to come back and play in TBT, which, again, is one of the hardest things to do. So that's really kind of the story for me.
Yeah, it sounds like two pretty big stories. Tooch, biggest story of TBT so far in your eyes?
You're wrong, Scarborough. It was right under your nose because we saw it last night. The 5 seed Happy Valley Hoopers. Don't get me wrong, I'm a little biased. This is somebody that grew up watching the Fab Five and Rec Hall at about 7 years old. But you look at what that roster and they ended up putting together. John Harrow did a great job constructing that. Last year, they basically came to the conclusion they needed to add more scoring. They did just that.
Did they?
And I didn't see them maybe potentially winning more than a game, let alone coming out of that whole region. And I think they're built to potentially go to Philly. They're that good. They have enough scoring punch.
You just said something about I thought Penn State just started playing basketball a few years ago. I'm confused. I don't understand. Like they play. I'm just confused.
They went to the Sweet 16 with the Crispin brothers. I know because I'm friends with John, and every now and then he lets me know.
Yeah.
So a story I bring up very briefly whenever this comes up is my partner and I have been together for 25 years. Our first vacation together, and this is how she knows I'm a basketball addict. I feel bad for her. Was during March Madness. That was my mistake. I'd never had a serious girl boyfriend before. I took her down on a vacation to like the Ozarks. By the way, the Ozarks are not a romantic place, first of all. Instead of all taking your girl on a trip during March Madness, for me is a problem. So I remember two things: the Crispin brothers going nuts that tournament, and also my partner going, "Are you going to just ignore me? We're on a vacation. What's wrong with you?" I'm watching TV. So yes, the Crispin brothers contributed to me barely hanging on to my first trip with my girlfriend. They were insane.
Was that when you started that offshore drug cartel?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly why I started. They gave me $8 million, and I leased the van back from the guy from Dell.
Let that one sink in. I'm gonna go get my charger. My laptop's about to die.
Okay, we're gonna bring him back. We're gonna bring him back in a minute. He can stay. We can look at his beautiful screen. Okay. Anyway, so biggest story. Let me see. We got Scar. We got Tooch. Charge. Hit me. What is your biggest story so far in TBT?
Yeah, I think the biggest story I had to the number one seed falling was intriguing to me. Cincinnati losing the top 1, 2, 3, and 4 seeds was intriguing. But for me, the biggest story is the Elam ending, and more specifically, the Elam ending meltdown. We have just seen some incredible Elam ending. So from a strategy standpoint, obviously, friends of the pod, D3, Boise State. Just struggled with the Elam ending. We've seen it in other markets. And so, for those teams, it's extremely frustrating to go home after an Elam ending like that. But so many games decided on the Elam ending where, from a fan perspective, if you're in the arena and you're watching Everline cling to this large, Elam Ending war ready, clinging to, and getting 10 straight points on it. The Elam Ending is just incredible. So if you, do not, like that basketball in the TBT, you're absolutely nuts. But Elam Ending for me has been the story this year for both those reasons. Just exciting games and that meltdown. And I actually, where I work, we had the Boise State team at our place of business doing a meet and greet, and I sat there. We had conversations with these guys about the Elam Ending, and hey, don't fall for that. You get into it. Don't just think you got to win by the 3. Oh, now we see teams blow it before, and it's just you're in that moment, and things start to get crazy. And to me, it's just made the TBT so much fun.
Absolutely. I mean, I think
Drives me nuts.
Yeah. I mean,
right. Drives me nuts.
If D3 had just taken a 2, they'd just taken 1-2.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
The 3-point line, they fall in love with it. And it's a two-edged sword when you're 3 points away, because they're going to take a 3-point shot if there's 10 guys guarding them. Whereas, I mean, last night I was watching the game from the restaurant, and I'm like, Tooch, look at the lane. And there's 5 defenders outside the 3-point line because
that was Mass Street's second to last possession.
They should be in the tournament still.
Drive
if they just knew how to take a layup, just drive.
Because
it happened in our game. 4 possessions at the end of the game.
It happened in our game last night too. Mike Young had 47 points in the first 2 games, and then I don't know what happened last night, and then kind of went into a funk late and decided to throw up a 3 at the end of that Elam Ending, and it was awful. It wasn't like it was even a good shot. It was a terrible shot.
Yep.
People take bad shots under pressure in basketball. I'm shocked to hear this. I've never heard of such a thing in my life. I think for me, the biggest story is still probably the energy in the venues would be my biggest story. And the biggest negative story is I'm going to go with the Cincinnati collapse. I mean, the entire region collapsed. Like, that's just to me kind of interesting. That's the biggest negative story. The biggest positive story is just the amazing turnout from some of these venues, and just this historic turnout, which is still, to me, the biggest story. Okay, so this is a little more personal. This is an easy one. I can't call you wrong because it's a very personal question. What game was your favorite of the first 3 rounds? Now, I'm going to split the guys who call games up, because the reality is they called the games. They might have a favorite. So let's start with Tooch there. What game was your favorite of the first 3 rounds?
The one we did last night.
Yeah, easy answer. That was a great game.
I mean, it was good. I was really impressed with the Pitt team, and Scar had pointed to it before. Their roster was just so much improved. And I think a lot of it was just the fact that some of those young guys like Nike Sabandi and Nelly Cummings had a year of TBT under their belt, which makes all the difference in the world. And then, you added a guy like a Mike Young. You had a veteran presence off the bench in Patterson. They had a lot at their disposal. And the fact that Happy Valley Hoopers came in and beat them, and that Sam Sessom showed us why I think he's one of the 2 or 3 fastest guards in this thing, was really impressive. So obviously a little biased because it's the one that we did, but I was on the edge of my seat last night wondering if Happy Valley was going to steal that, and they did. Yeah,
I mean, that was a pretty elite game out of many elite games. Charles, what was your favorite game in the first 3 rounds?
Yeah, I think being there biases a little bit here, but this game was incredible. And it wasn't necessarily the score, but the winner with D3 getting their first tournament win. So they lost 5 games in a row. They're a much better team than their seeds have ever been. So they got a chance this year to show what they got, and they backed it up. But it was. The coaching was great. The team was energized, very emotional. So they were, obviously playing for Justin Hardy, who passed away from cancer a couple years back. And just to see it all come together, and just a raw emotion from that team and what was happening in that arena. I drove down there at short notice with my son, and spending that day with him was great. But that game was just incredible. Coach runs over to the the bracket to advance his team. Just so excited. He slaps it in the wrong place, has to rip it off and get it in the right place. So there's going to be more wins, so he'll get it right next time. But it was just something about that game. I mean, just to be a basketball fan, fan of the small schools, the underdog, and for them to get it was just absolutely phenomenal. And just the side note is I've been down a Heart Fire for a lot of years now. I've been rooting for them to go against, and I got to see the beginning and the end in that next game. They were, players on the team calling each other lazy, getting in, verbal disagreements, and they were a train wreck right from the first game. So even though they kind of won those ones, it was unraveled. So that was a side bonus for me. But D3, shout out to those guys. It was just so good, such a great feeling to see those guys get their first win.
Yeah, the two D3 alums who make this podcast, we're really, really happy for Reg and crew. Scar, your favorite game in the first 3 rounds?
Yeah, for me, even though Heartfire went down, I enjoyed the Ohio State, the Carmen's crew. Good to see them back with a good team. It's great to see my good friend Jared Sullinger back in the mix. Of course, he coached that 2019 team that won the whole thing. And he's, of course, a longtime NBA guy, played with the Celtics and others. But seeing Sully in there at the end of the game, that was kind of cool for me personally. And he's such a brain in terms of, obviously a coach on the floor. I felt like the way they finished the game, every possession was good for that Carmen's crew team, and it will be. And that's why they have a good chance to win, because these games are all coming down to how you play in Elam, right? It almost doesn't matter, because we've had enough experience with Elam that even teams that are down 5 or 6 going into Elam in the past, they would just kind of fold their tents. Now they realize the approach is, and Tucci and I talk about this. If you're down 5, you got to think we got to beat them 13-7, and then when you put it that way, it seems much more realistic. How do you beat a team 13-7? You got to get stops. Well, we can do that. So then we just go on a run. So the teams that approach Elam with the understanding of how to finish the game, or the teams that go up by 30, like La Familia against Herd, that's the formula.
They just scored again.
They just scored again.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah,
But the formula is most of these games are close. But even if you're down 5 or 6 now, people understand how to win the game. So you got to have closers on the floor, smart players, guys that's going to keep running offense and not try to take hero shots, and then guys that can make big shots. And that's why I really like that Penn State team, as you mentioned, too. Samuel Sessions, that Sessions is a really, really good closer. He scored the last 6 points in Elam, and everybody knew he was going to take the shot, and nobody could keep themselves in front of him. Amazing.
My favorite game, I had the privilege of going to 3 venues this year. I got to go to Louisville, Lexington, and stop by.
Humble brag.
Hey man, I'm on my own dime. So
that was after his trip to the summer league, and he said TBT, and on the way home, he's got it going on.
He's only an architect with disposable income, ladies and gentlemen.
I don't know who's affecting my score right now, but it's going negative. I don't know what's going on here. But no, our architect with disposable income. That's a lie if I've ever heard one. No, but the funny part is I think of the favorite games, the ones I got to see. I think the Louisville sideline game was probably my favorite, because sideline kind of had them. They probably should have won, and then Louisville turned up the heat and really put on the pressure, and the crowd dragged them to that win. I saw the power of a team that I have a bounty against, that I hate. They're a Memphis rival. I've never liked Louisville. Screw Louisville. But you got to respect the passion they played with. And to watch that game in a basketball mecca like Freedom Hall, even as someone who completely despises Louisville, it was just a wonderful, wonderful event. And seeing 2 really quality teams. Sideline lost Keene. Sideline lost a lot. And I thought they weren't going to be up to the challenge. I thought they were going to get stomped. And they should have won. They had it. I mean, the Jermaine Merrow ad was incredible late. Adding him to the team was incredible to replace Keene. They had a really good squad, and they were like one player, one shot away. But that was my favorite game of a multitude of really, really wonderful games. The game I enjoyed the least was definitely watching Heard that and La Familia. Oh, and they scored again. So that was just pretty bad. Hate to see a team go out that way. Okay, we're getting pretty close to the end. We got a couple more questions, and score's pretty even. Score's up slightly, but let's go ahead. Let's start from the back. Let's start with Charge. So there's a lot of missed opportunities, and obviously TBT is a high variance thing. Basketball's high variance. If you're playing knockout basketball, the better team doesn't always win. Shots don't fall. The basketball gods are fickle, etc. Which eliminated team has the most regret, as in the biggest chance they could have won, for not making Philly? Charge, what do you got?
Yeah, now first I got to comment on Jacob Hirschman. He said, Charge's son, the biggest Everline fan. That's my guy. See, I raised my kids right. You know, I get them set down the right path, you know, get them hooked up with these Everline guys, rooting for the right teams. And yeah, so good job, son. And then the team that really, I think that
better send him some gear, Jake.
I know.
Gear.
Yeah, he was going hard the other night. We need one of those fat heads, and you know, we're not going to Houston. Sorry, Everline, but that's a different story. Still mad about that. But it wasn't not even making Philly, but the team I selected was Stars and Stores. I was just so shocked at this one. They had the biggest bankroll. I mean, the boosters behind it, kind of star status things going on. You know, so I just thought there was going to be more there. They had good players, but we always talk about those first year TBT teams struggling, and you know, they absolutely did. And so they're in the club partying after beating the Herkimer Originals, putting that on social. And I think they just thought they were going to cruise to the finals, you know, after that first win. And you guys were there, so you can comment what I've done, Matt. But I thought that was just the biggest. So I don't know if it's regret or just surprised at how bad this team performed in that second game, and just the confidence and kind of what they put into it, the party atmosphere. I think they just kind of missed the mark, and hopefully they will be back next year, and they will be better and focus a little more on basketball. And I think that team probably went home feeling the worst about their early exit.
Matt, what do you think? The team that has the most regrets not getting to Philly?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be easy to agree with Charge, and I think I'm just going to take the easy way out and do that, because I like midway through the first quarter, I looked at Scar and we were doing that game, and I said something to him to the effect of, I think these guys looked at this like they just thought they had to show up tonight. You know, yeah, the name does say the UConn alumni, but this is a learning experience. It doesn't matter who you have on paper. I mean, I can remember the year we were down in Richmond and the Wake alumni played in this thing, and Scar, and I looked at Scar and I was like, oh my God, that's Justin Gray. And then the game started and it was like, yeah, that's Justin Gray at 35 or whatever. And it was never the same. So yeah, I mean, I think it was an eye opener for them for sure. Where they were seeded one. They probably felt like they were going to come through that region, and you know, they put a lot behind it. Hell, they were courting Rudy Gay at one point. They almost ended up getting him. So yeah, I think they probably are the biggest regret in terms of not getting to Philly.
Scar, break this up a bit. You got a different team in mind, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's certainly easy to pick that Stars and Stores team. We witnessed it. We saw it. One thing I'll say about TBT, if you're too cool for school, you're going home. You had TBT is a gritty tournament, and the teams that play hardest are the ones that wins. You think about that Autism Army team; they got to the final game. They did it because they beat a Florida TNT team that was more talented than them, but the Florida TNT team didn't play together in key moments, and they ended up going home. So you have to be gritty. You have to fight. You have to try to bring everything to every TBT game, or you're going to go home. And that's really why I liked Heartfire so much, because I felt like those guys do that. Having said that, for me, one of the biggest regrets is not seeing that mean green team take a step up. The North Texas group, the alumni team that got to the championship game last year. So I was disappointed that they weren't able to repeat their performance. And in fact, all four teams that were there last year, including Friday Beers, who is now kind of the Assembly Ballers, the IU guys, none of them are going to the Final Four this year. So,
Charge, what was that? Before I tell you why that
I cannot associate Friday Beers or Armored Athlete and translate that over to Assembly Ball. the strand has broken. It's like that. Still great leadership, good GM, put together a great team, but just a little strand. But yeah. I mean, obviously, we grew up. I mean, we've been following TBT forever. This group here, and grew up on the Harvard athlete. It's a lifestyle, and it's obviously changed. Which is for the good for those guys. Obviously, they got big alumni teams, big sponsors, all that good stuff going on. So really happy for those guys. But yeah, I'm old school, man. I love the Harvard athlete days.
I'm
disappointed.
disappointed.
People tell you're old school by your beard, by the way. You look basically Amish. Go ahead, Scar. What?
I'm disappointed that the Shaq team didn't go far either. And
you just wanted to meet. You just wanted to meet Shaq. You just wanted to meet Shaq. You were hoping Shaq was going to end up in Philly.
I live in Atlanta. I can meet Shaq almost anytime I want.
Yeah, I guess you could.
Humble brag.
You still wanted Shaq in Philly.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna. You're all wrong. This is the first time you've all been right the whole time. This one you're all wrong. And the fact that no one mentioned assembly ball to me is flooring because. And you mentioned it kind of talking. Scar kind of did, but they had, What they had the guts. They had the leadership of Armored Athlete or Friday Beers translating over, and they had some of those players like Julian Gamble coming back with them. They had coaching. They had a deep alumni team. They had a home court. Normally, first-year alumni teams do struggle, but with the leadership of the vets coming over, Brown and Gamble, there is no reason they shouldn't be playing still. That was an AJ Mahar, the GM, would tell you himself that was a disappointing result. I think Hardfire is disappointing. Stars of Stores is obviously disappointing, but I can't think of a bigger disappointment as far as who should be disappointing themselves than Assembly Ball because they had the talent to win this whole thing. And that to me was the real shocker of this whole thing. And real quick, there we go.
Jake Stevens happened. And
there's the counterbalance. Jake Stevens had it.
They just had no killer instinct. The Assembly Ball team. They were good, but they were not putting teams away. They let crew back in the game. And,
they were in third gear.
It was just they could not just put teams away, and that came back and got them. Everline obviously jumped up on them and pounded them start to finish, and not start to finish. They that Elon meant it, but they're going to be much better in Houston. But I mean they just got up on them, and Indiana just didn't show any killer instinct.
We have two questions to go, but I want to go ahead and bring up one thing real quick. And you guys can talk about this a little bit. And this is this guy is the son of some idiot, but he said, "What's the explanation of why Carmen's crew isn't hosting in Dayton?" So I thought, and we talk about this. This might be inside baseball, but I'm curious. I thought it was 4 individual games. Was this a change? Were people confused? Was there a pivot? And I don't know if we can talk about this openly, but I'm curious. Was it 4 games, or is this sort of something that we misunderstood? I'm confused myself. Maybe I'm confused. Maybe we'll leave it at that. I'm confused. We'll leave it at that. I'm confused. We'll just assume I'm
confused.
I genuinely don't know, but I felt like it was going to be 4 different regions. And if you remember, we talked about Butler, Pittsburgh, Lexington, Louisville, Wichita, Houston, and Dayton, Cincinnati, and then there would be 4 teams. But I think they pivoted. It's their right. It's their product.
Of course,
and I think it's a smart pivot because you're going to have a building full of electricity.
10,000 people smart. 10,000 people smart. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with results. You would
have got 500 people in that game.
Is it 10 or did they open it up to 15 to be capacity?
The capacity's open to 15. So they're at 10 now. Last time I checked, I'm sure they're closer to 11 or 12. I was following last night. I mean, they've already got the attendance record. Before they even tipped the ball, because it was 8-something in Wichita was the previous record. So the attendance record's been broken before the balls, a week before the balls tipped. It's truly, truly, truly insane. Oh, hang on.
So when the Kentucky alumni win by 30, no, I'm just.
and they scored again. And
they got to stop. They got to stop playing Heard That first. They got to finish.
Yes, Heard That's really good. It's funny. I was talking to Odd about this, and I told him I think Heard That's good enough to have beaten Kentucky at 3 or 4 out of 10 times. Kentucky's a little better than Heard. Heard's a good team though. So they're not even, but Heard's only a slight underdog. Speaking to Scar about 1 seed's not being true. But I would put them as a 40-60 underdog or 35-65 underdog. But they played the worst they could play. John had the game from hell, and Eric Bledsoe just destroyed them. So it was literally the worst thing. One game plays terrible. The better team plays the best they can play, and that's a wrap. It was insane. And that's a good lead into my last questions. I'm pretty sure we're going to have a lot of agreement here. Okay. Guys, who's your championship pick and why? Charge. Start with you, man.
Yeah, the very first bracket I filled out right after the seedings were shown. I said Kentucky's going to win this thing, and they are absolutely on track. Bledsoe, we talked about him a little bit, has been phenomenal. How they got Cantor from Zip 'em Up, and I knew Zip 'em Up was going to unravel if they couldn't retain their own alumni guys, was just absolutely insane. So Kentucky is just so strong. So they're going to continue to roll. That was my initial pick. And while I'm here, I got to shout out Colorado. I have been pushing Colorado from day one as well. I said something about this team I really, really like. And so if Kentucky and Colorado make the finals, Kentucky win, I'll probably win the TBT pool. So I am rooting for those two teams, and Kentucky's going to win it. Colorado's going to be runner-up.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so anyway, that's pretty good picks. Let's go ahead. Who is your championship pick and why? Matt Martucci.
Carmen's Crew. Simply because you look up and down their roster, loaded with pros, and not that anybody else isn't in this thing, but not only loaded with pros, but loaded with guys that have played in this thing before, some guys that have won this thing before. Bringing Sullinger back, adding DeSante Bradford, who was a walking bucket the couple times that we had him down in Charleston, adding Jamel Morris, who had the Elam Ender the other night, who I thought was going to play with West Virginia, for the rest of his life, since they had kind of named him an honorary member and made him like an honorary West Virginian. But up and down that roster, Eric Neal, UT Arlington, total dog, Caleb Wesson, Keyshawn Woods, Tevin Glass, who played with Buccaneers along with Bradford. I just think that they're so loaded that if they do get tripped up, it's going to surprise me the way that they've played so far. So,
okay, I wasn't expecting that one.
Give me Carmen's Crew.
Give him Carmen's Crew. Scar, closing with you. Your championship pick for TBT and why?
Well, if Carmen's Crew can't find a way to stop AJ English, they're done on Monday night. Having said that, Carmen's Crew is the team I'm most connected to and would love to see win of the remaining teams. La Familia, if they could get by Louisville on their home floor, which I think they can, La Familia is probably the best team to me that's still in the tournament. So I think that Kentucky team, if they can survive on Monday night, will be able to win it. And the reason the team I really want to pick is Eberline, but man, have I been bad for them, and Jake is my guy, Matt Mitchell is my guy. I refuse to pick Eberline because I don't want those guys coming at my throat if they lay an egg. So
what year was that? The Scarborough curse of
it was every year. It's every year.
It began in 2018, and the story has unfolded ever since. And I've stayed away from those guys, and now they're back in the mix.
And then 2022 in Albuquerque, it was, I love Challenge ALS. Challenge ALS.
And then Scar says he loves Joe Biden. No, I'm kidding. By the way, before we get to our final thing, can we just address real briefly the actual biggest story of TBT is they have 3 over-the-air games, and Joe Biden literally kills one. Like, that was insane. Like I'm not running. It's like, whoa, could you not run during one of the Fox Sports games? Not one of the.
Well, we were at the Phillies game, so we didn't really get caught up in it. So it was
pretty crazy timing. Pretty crazy timing. Okay, guys, we are at the end of the game. I will go ahead. By the way, my champion, I'm agreeing with Charge and Scar. I'm going to go with La Familia. And we're all tied with this. Everybody got to 20. Oh, no. Actually, Scar, late point. Scar wins tonight. Scar is our winner on the game. He gets to 21. Everybody gets some final thoughts, though. We're going to go ahead and close out with final thoughts. So before we go away, everybody gets a few seconds or about a minute, talk about whatever you want. So Charge, your turn on the mic. Closing TB thoughts for this cycle.
Bunch of random. Yeah. Vinny, I still owe dinner. If you're still in Indy, I get home from Chicago tomorrow. We'll get hooked up. We'll make it happen. But it's not 3 times I bailed on him. It was once. He stood me up the first time. I stood him up the second 2 times. But I do owe Vinny dinner. On Elmore, wearing a Cleveland Charge hat backwards, during his game the other night. I mean, there's something to respect about that. So absolutely loved what he was doing. The condensed schedule is my real story here, though. This was an incredible week of basketball. So normally you kind of start, half the regions on one weekend, and later that next week you start the next games. But we had basketball Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and it was just, I mean, if you didn't get hooked, and if you're not a TBT fan, it was just a constant fix of basketball, and the games were great, a lot of volume. My son's like, yeah, we need like a TBT red zone that one night. All the games started pretty much at the same time, and it was insane. So I thought that condensed schedule was absolutely great. Shout out to TBT. Their stats service has switched over from one group to another. And, we run this little podcast and a couple social media accounts and run a fantasy league, and the stats were bad. They were just really bad and weren't working, and they could have just told me to bug off. But, they actually went above and beyond to make sure the stats were working for us personally to use to run this fantasy league and kind of communicate data. So shout out to them. But this has been the funnest year I've had in a long time. And I don't know if it's because the Butler region was close to me. We have the guys like Everline, Garrett from Fort Wayne, just people I like. I was able to get over Dayton, CD3 I talked about. It's just been a fun year. So it's just always fun meeting with you guys, the TBT community. It's small, it's close knit, and just had a great time this year. It's been my best TBT to date.
Okay, that's a pretty condensed sort of thing. Matt, what do you think, Tooch? What are your closing TBT thoughts for this cycle?
8 years. I'll echo what Charge just said. It felt like the 4-letter tournament in March, having kind of the wall to wall, for however many straight days, and that was what they were trying to accomplish with having all 8 regions in the same week. Some of us like traveling to one site and then getting to travel to another one the next week, but neither here nor there. I think the desired effect was achieved. And I will say this, they need to have it in Wichita from now until the end of time, because if I can't hear Eric Collins scream, Frank, it's not TBT. And I'm totally serious. I love watching Eric Cole and Elam ending. And that makes it whenever Connor Frank Kemp knocks down a shot. So
that's pretty amazing.
That's that.
Frank Kemp. All right, Scar, what are your closing thoughts, my man?
Well, the first year away from ESPN, Fox has done a solid job. And, TBT got their first game on network television. So that's another milestone. So that's a thought. Getting all these really good alumni teams to go this far has been fun. And then, having it in Philadelphia again, I'm looking forward to being there. I cannot wait to see you almost guarantee there's going to be 4 really good teams, because there are 8 really good teams left. And, fingers crossed that the ones that I want to get there, wink, wink, get there without me jinxing them, but we'll see. But yeah, it's been, as Tuch mentioned, 8 years for me calling games. I had the experience of calling the very first Elam ending scenario, and I've been able to coin the phrase Elam ender, so I feel a big part of this. And me and Matt were there for the Bradley comeback. This is kind of in our DNA at this point. So looking forward to next week. The quarterfinal games are going to be just 4 really good war games, and then getting to Philadelphia next Thursday. Shout out to all my friends from Cedar Grove Academy. Oh, that's right. You'll be there too. I don't know. You have to hang out with some of my old basketball teammates, Hainer, when we get there. So, and we'll get you one of the best cheesesteaks that you can find. So, but yeah, it's been a wonderful experience once again. 8th season. It went fast, as Tuch was saying, but it still was fun.
Yeah, and my closing thought is it's always a pleasure to have you two on. I've enjoyed making friends with this community. I've enjoyed this tournament. It's been a real wonderful thing to be a part of, even in a small way. So it's just been a real pleasure getting to know you guys, the whole community, and also watching some high-level basketball. One brief thing before we go on, I just want to ask about this. The Fox deal with the OTA games, it's been successful, right? This has been a good thing for FS1, FS2, changing gears. ESPN is great, but the best way to get a future good deal is to walk away from a deal. Tuch, Scar, this is objectively a good thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I know, I think it is, and I think the best thing about it is the fact that you know, regular Fox is an OTA network, so anyone with a digital antenna, basically, if the and I believe the final is going to be on regular, it's going to be on regular Fox.
It
It's gonna be on the main,
is.
it's on the main network. So I mean, you could potentially be in almost every household in the United States, which is pretty cool. So yeah, I think based on that alone, it's a success. So, and
We're gonna hold you.
I look forward to seeing how it develops in the coming years.
Yep, and we're gonna put this on. Jake said, "Appreciate you boys. Everyone gear for everyone in Philly." We're gonna hold you that, Jake. I'm an XL. I wear 10.5s in case you're wondering. Okay, guys. Charge, my co-host, broadcasting legends, play-by-play maestro Matt Martucci, and key analyst and basketball legend Tim Scarborough. Gentlemen, thanks for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me.
And this has been Zoom the TBT, and we are, as always, signing off.
Hope you enjoyed listening to Zoom the TBT with Charge and Hayner. Subscribe to YouTube, follow on Twitter, and give us your money.